So, it's nice to actually be able to be together again and discuss. Of course, we are 2 metres away and in a garden, so
You're so far away.
We can't hug, I'm sorry. But I do have some hypotheticals for you, okay?
Oh, I do love some hypotheticals.
So, good, here we go. And now this is a classic one, and I don't think I've ever got your opinion on it. So, would you rather fight 1 horse-sized duck or 10 duck-sized horses?
I mean, you've got to go for the 10 duck-sized horses, right? And imagine that giant beak, like, boom! Like,
yeah.
You know, I'd probably go 100 duck-sized horses rather than 1 horse-sized duck. I mean...
But with a duck, okay, yeah, the only thing it has is its beak. So you don't really need to worry about that as long as you go round it and, take out its legs or something.
I don't know, I mean, those giant, like, flipper feet as well, like you've got to avoid them. Like, you get stuck under one of those and, like, it pins you down.
Also, I'm thinking, though, if you could tame that duck, okay, you've then got something that can fly and go on water and walk. It'd be the perfect riding animal, I think. Whereas the horses, they could come and bite you and kick you. They've got a pretty powerful kick.
Yeah, but they're tiny.
But 10 of them.
Yeah, but imagine with one kick you could, like, take out all 10.
Alright, well, we'll see what happens then. Sadly, I don't actually have them.
Release the ducks!
So anyway, yeah, okay, we'll agree to disagree on that one. But here's another one. Would you rather have a hand made of ham or an armpit that dispenses sun cream?
Does the hand grow back if I eat it?
Let's say yes.
Ooh, that's interesting. I don't know how much I'd want to eat my own hand.
It might be painful as well.
I think, like, the sun cream's more functional, just to be like, oh yeah, it's sunny, I'll just...
Yeah, but though, the armpit sweats a lot, and, that sun cream's going to smell, and then you're wiping it over all your body. People aren't going to want to come near you.
But then you're going to smell of ham all day anyway with the other ones.
That is true, yeah. So,
I think I'm going for the sun cream. I think it's more practical.
Alright, okay. And a final one. Would you rather live in your home country with your family, or leave it and live with one other person in another country where you will know no one else?
I mean, I would love to, like, live in New Zealand or somewhere, but I couldn't bear being away from my family. Like, even if just one other person, like, I'd miss so many people. So
yeah.
I think that would be my choice, is to stay. Well, it's what I've chosen. So
yeah. That's true. I mean, you only mentioned your family there, so you'd happily get rid of your friends, whatever.
I got to take one friend with me.
Who would it be? Okay, we'll move on from that awkward moment. So I think it's obvious that actually, I think most people would pick to live in their home country. Okay, and actually that goes with a story that we have, where someone actually chooses to move to another country with one other person and knows no one else. And today we're actually going to be looking at the story of Ruth and Naomi.
There once was a woman called Naomi. She had a husband and 2 sons. When a famine came, they left their home in Bethlehem and travelled to live in a place called Moab. There her 2 sons met women and married them. Tragically, however, in the 10 years they lived in Moab, the 3 men in the family passed away, leaving Naomi with just her 2 daughters-in-law, Ruth and Orpah. When Naomi heard news that the famine in Bethlehem was over, she prepared to leave Moab and head home, and she told Ruth and Orpah, "Go back to your mother's homes. May the Lord show you the kindness that you showed me and my sons." After much deliberation, Orpah left, kissing Naomi goodbye, but Ruth clung to her, saying, "Don't make me leave you. Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. May even death not separate us." When Naomi realised she could not convince Ruth to leave her, they travelled together back to Bethlehem as a family.
Our story today is a massive tragedy. We meet 3 people who are hurting and grieving. First of all, we meet Naomi, who has lost her husband and her 2 sons. And then we meet Ruth and Orpah, her daughter-in-laws,
who have both lost their husbands. And in the middle of this, Naomi decides to leave the area and head to her hometown of Bethlehem. And the two daughters are left with a difficult situation. Or do they stay with her? Or do they stay where they are? And Naomi pleads with them to stay where they are, to stay in their home of Moab. And one of the daughter-in-laws, Orpah, decides to do just that. But the other one, Ruth, gives this amazing expression of love. She declares her love for Naomi, and she stays with her. She leaves behind everything she knows. She leaves her home, her family, her friends, all to go to some distant land she doesn't know to take care of Naomi. It's an amazing expression of love and care.
So in the story, Naomi was really grieving, but Ruth came in and through her love gave her hope. Now this week we thought as a prayer activity, what you're going to want is you're going to want to get 2 post-it notes or small pieces of paper. And on one of the notes, I want you to write something that maybe you're worried about that people are suffering with. So on mine, I've put COVID-19. And of course then on the other, we want you to put something that actually brings you hope. And for me, that's my daughter Hannah. And it's someone I love as well. And then what I want you to do is get them and stick them on a window. So here are my 2. And as you do that, I want you to think about the light as it is shining through. And of course, the light of Jesus shines in our world. And he is recognising our requests. So the book of Ruth is such a small book and it's hidden away in the Old Testament. And it could be so easily missed. And yet God chooses to use Ruth. But she could be seen as someone so insignificant. So why do you think God chooses to use her?
I mean, I think that says so much about God's character, doesn't it? I mean, so often we think about the type of person God wants to use, and we think, God wants to use the most important person. You know, God probably wants to use the king of the area. The person who has huge influence, or a certain person with a certain character. And reading the Bible, I'm so often so surprised by what sort of characters he uses. I mean, you look at Peter. I mean, Peter's definitely not the type of person I'd choose. He has a big mouth in him and just says random things at random times, and so many times he says something and Jesus kind of has to go, no, not now, Peter, come on. There's that classic moment of get behind me, Satan, where he said something really brilliant and then straight after he says something really daft and Jesus is like, get behind me, Satan. Like, no, I'm not having that. You can't say that. I would choose Peter, and yet God does. God sees his potential and sees what he can do and goes, Peter, I'm using him. Similarly, you look at through the Old Testament, you've got people like Jonah who literally runs away from God. If I was choosing people, that would be the quality which I looked at and went, no, I'm not going to choose people who run away from me, but that's someone he directly chooses. Moses, Moses isn't a confident person. You see in the burning bush, he's there going, oh no, maybe send someone else, and he's very self-conscious and he's got a stutter and he's like, no, you want to use someone who's more eloquent and more better at speaking than me. You don't want to use me. And so often we kind of assume what sort of person God wants to use, and yet here we've got someone who isn't an Israelite. She's not one of God's chosen people. She's from another land. She's seemingly insignificant, and yet God uses her, and he uses her in huge ways. And we're going to see in the next week how he uses her elsewise. But God uses the people who we might look at and see as insignificant, as little nobodies from a far off land, to do big things.
Which is just great, isn't it?
Gives me hope. I look at myself and sometimes I go, I'm not the sort of person God would want to use. But that's my view, not God's view.
Yeah.
God uses those people who we look at and go.
Yeah. So we've only looked at chapter 1 today, and it's quite a short chapter, and yet it seems to span over quite a few years. And so, what is actually going on in the chapter?
Yeah. So it does seem like quite a weird story, doesn't it? There's kind of not a lot that seems to go on. They go off to a land, and then her sons die off, and then Naomi decides to go back. And we kind of miss a lot in that story because of the context. Because today, if you're aging, there's a huge amount of social structures to help you. You know, we've got this amazing thing called the NHS, we've got care homes and all sorts. They didn't have those in those days. In those days, you relied on having sons and having a husband who would care for you in your old age. Because if you didn't have those things, what do you do? There's nothing that you can do. So when Naomi's sons died, that's a huge tragedy in its own right, but it also leaves her in this horrible position where she's now aging, she's not got opportunity to have another son, and she's not got anything to protect her in her old age. She's got nothing to provide for her, she's got nothing to help her. So when she says, I'm going to go back to my home in Bethlehem, what she's really saying is, I'm going there to die. I'm leaving you so that I can go and die peacefully in my homeland. And at the same time, what she's doing is she's kind of freeing Ruth and Orpah, who are in the same boat, because they've lost their husbands. They don't have sons at this point, and she's saying, I don't want the same thing for you. I don't want you to be left without a husband and children, and I want to free you from any obligation you feel. So I'm leaving you so that you can go and have husband and children, so that you aren't in the same boat, which is really sacrificial. To say, because having daughters-in-law isn't the same as having sons in those days, but it is a little bit of a safety net. So freeing those two people from that obligation and saying, I'm going to leave you so that you can go off and have husbands and children so you don't end up in that same boat as me, is actually a huge thing. And then you've got Orpah and Ruth, and Orpah is very torn, but eventually decides, okay, I will leave and I will go and live my life separately. But then turns to Ruth, and Ruth goes, no, I'm going to stick with you. I'm not going to leave you. I'm going to stay with you. And she kind of makes a commitment, which kind of feels like marital vows almost, and she kind of goes, may even death not part us. And she commits to Naomi in this amazing way and says, no, I'm going to stay with you.
So Ruth chooses to stay with Naomi, to make that hard choice. I mean, I asked you earlier, whether you would leave your family and go live in another country on your own with maybe only one other person, or would you rather stay in your home country, live with around the people that love you and that you love? And of course you picked to stay. And I think most people would make that decision, and yet Ruth doesn't. And you just said she wasn't obligated to follow Naomi. So why do you think she did?
It's a great question. And ultimately I think the answer is love. I mean, moving in those days was a bit bigger a thing than moving in these days,
Seems big enough here now.
If I did move to New Zealand, then, we'd still have Skype, we'd still phone each other and chat together. I'd still get a plane back every now and then and come and visit you, and I hope you come and visit me as well. It's not like we'd never see each other. But in a world without technology, without cars, without phones, without planes, moving to a different country is kind of saying, I'm not going to see my family ever again. Maybe you'd be able to go back and visit, but, how do you kind of organise that without phones, So she's binding herself to Naomi, and as I said, it's kind of like this marital vows in a way. She's making these promises, where you go, I'll go, where you live, I'll live, your gods will be my gods, and she's making these promises to her, but not out of this obligation. She's, when you marry your husband and wife, you make I'm sure you remember making certain vows to Sarah. Do you remember what those vows were?
To having to hold in sickness and in health, for richer, for poorer, for better, for worse, till death do us part.
So, did you make those vows out of an obligation?
No, it's because I wanted to.
Exactly. She's choosing to, and in those days, it was a marital contract was a bit more of an obligation. It was a lot more pragmatic. It was a lot more, you have to have kids because otherwise there's no social structure to protect us. There was that element to it in those days in which there isn't now. But even now, you still go, I imagine, you still go above and beyond those marriage vows. I imagine some days you still bring Sarah home some flowers, and you still take her out for a meal, and you still...
Well, not since lockdown started, but I did, yeah.
But that's not in any way part of the obligation, is it?
No.
You don't say in the vows in sickness and in health, and on Tuesdays I'll bring you flowers, or I'll do something to show you that I love you. That's you actively showing that you love her. And in the same way, Ruth and Naomi, they're not bound together. Ruth was married to Naomi's son. She made the commitments to him, and till death do they part. And so she's kind of free from those obligations. She's not bound to them in the same way that she might be bound to her husband, but she chooses to stay with Naomi. So I think this passage is this amazing expression of love, where Ruth is saying, I'm going to love Naomi, I'm going to care for her in any way I can, to the point of self-sacrificialness, where she's giving up on staying in her homeland, she's giving up on potentially having a husband and children, so she's potentially dooming herself to the same fate as Naomi, and she's sacrificing that in a way that she's not obligated to, but she's choosing to.
Yeah.
And I think that's an amazing expression of love in the Bible.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, that is amazing, isn't it? So let's just pray to end. Lord, we thank you that you really wanted this book to be saved in your word, and that we can learn so much from it. Lord, I just pray that we would be able to love people in the way that Ruth loved Naomi. Lord, I pray that we will go above and beyond to help people, to look out for those who are in need. Amen.
Amen.